I have a new book coming out called Dashboards That Deliver. It is a companion to the big book of dashboards. But I feel like it's the book my younger self wished that I had when I started out with building dashboards, which is really exciting.
Welcome to the Data Nerd Podcast. I'm your host, Nisar Ahmed. Join me as we explore the inner data nerd inside all of us. Dive into the world of data alongside special guests who not only share their wealth of experience and knowledge, but also unveil what truly makes them data nerds. This podcast is brought to you by Business Intelligence. That's Biznis Intelligence. You can subscribe to my YouTube channel at Business Intelligence to stay up to date with Tableau training and the Data Nerd podcast. Connect with me on LinkedIn or stream the Data Nerd podcast across all major podcast platforms. I'm joined by Amanda today, live at Tableau Conference in San Diego.
Yes.
Welcome, Amanda.
Sunny San Diego.
Sunny San Diego.
I feel like we haven't had a lot of sunshine, and now here it is.
Perfect weather. It's the last day, though.
Yes, last day.
Yeah.
Sadly, actually.
It is a little sad
I miss
when
everybody.
it ends, right?
It is. It's always nice to see folks, you know?
Like you wait the whole year for this, and then it's just gone.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'll put the plug in that people can come to Outlier that's hosted by the DVS in June,
let's
right?
Let's talk about that. Okay?
Yeah.
You want to introduce yourself, your name, and what you do, and all the different projects you're involved in?
Oh, sure. Yes. Hi, I'm Amanda Makulec. I am an independent data visualization consultant. I'm based in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, after spending 15 years in Washington, D.C. I used to be the executive director for the Data Visualization Society and was one of the founding board members for that organization 6 years ago.
Wow.
Right? 6 years. I keep up with it because it is the same timeline as when my son was born. So I started volunteering with DVS right around my son's birth. So whenever he has a birthday, I know DVS is having a birthday. And then I also right now continue on as an advisor for DVS and continue to consult doing lots of public health related data visualization work.
That's great. You also have a book coming out.
Oh, I do. Yes.
Right? Because I had Andy Colgrave on, so I guess you told me about the book.
Yes.
You're co-authoring with him?
I am. Yeah. So Andy, Jeff, Steve, and I have a new book coming out called Dashboards That Deliver. It is a companion to the big book of dashboards. And it was a joy to get to write that book with the three of them. We do chart chat together every month. And so it was really fun to be able to go ahead and work on a big, chewy, meaty book project. And we're really proud of how it turned out. I feel like it's the book my younger self wished that I had when I started out with building dashboards, which is really exciting.
So we can talk about that because you are, if there's anybody that I want to ask about dashboard advice, you're the perfect person. Because you also judged the Iron Viz competition this year, right? You have data visualization, why is this a tongue twister? Data Visualization Society.
It's okay. It's day 3 of Tableau Conference.
Day 3. Like I'm tired of talking. That's all I've been doing, actually. I've been just talking to people all day. That's what,
That's what a podcaster does, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then you're also involved with, what did I say? And then you have the book coming out. And so there's a lot of different projects that you're doing. And so I think you can really shed a light into like what makes a good, the Outlier Conference is coming up too.
Outlier is coming up, yep.
Yes, when is that?
June 11th through the 13th, hosted at the University of Miami with Alberto Cairo.
Do you already have speakers set for that?
We do. We're going to start making speaker announcements next week. So we're really excited.
Oh, wow.
We got all of our speaker confirmations. Alberto will do the closing keynote. So you'll get to hear from Alberto. But as always, like in person, hybrid, join us virtually. And I hope people will tune in because it's a really good speaker lineup this year. I'm really excited.
Will that be announced like on LinkedIn or on a website?
On LinkedIn, on the DVS website. We'll keep posting those speaker announcements and speaker cards as they come up. So we're really excited.
That's amazing. I'm looking forward to that. And we were just talking a bit before we started this podcast, and you were saying that like your journey to where you are now.
Yes.
And where you started off. All right. You want to talk about that? Like, where did you start off, and how you got to where you are?
Sure. So it's interesting because I think a lot of us who work in data visualization right now and who have been in the field for more than a decade don't have data analytics or data science degrees from our undergrad days, right? I mean, a lot of us don't. I actually have my undergrad degrees are in zoology and sociology.
Oh, yeah.
And then I went and did my master's in public health. And so for me, like data has always been central to the work that I do. In public health, we're looking at patterns and what's happening across populations. And so what more powerful tool do you have to communicate that data than data visualization? And so my arc over the last 15 years took me from being a monitoring and evaluation person inside of a public health organization, writing reports and web content and analyses for USAID, all the way through building out opportunities to learn and grow my own data viz skills, because I was frustrated with seeing all the ways in which our great research wasn't communicated terribly effectively. And continued to go ahead and do that with different companies, worked in tech, worked at various different clients while I was working for a tech consulting firm, and eventually landed in a space where I'm doing independent consulting. And I think back, actually, this is a good throwback to being in San Diego, because my first Tableau conference was 2012 in San Diego. And I believe I was using maybe Tableau 6 or 7. No floating containers. So the Iron Viz folks couldn't have done their Iron Vizes without those floating containers. But the whole event was right over there at the Hilton Bayfront. No convention center, nothing. It was like 2,000 of us. And that was really where I started to get to know the Tableau community too, and really learn more about data visualization.
So it's interesting that, because you said you came from a non-tech background. But you're still using data, and then you saw an opportunity to communicate better, and that's why you got into Tableau.
One, the data visualization, not just Tableau.
Okay, data visualization.
Yeah,
right? So
call it more broadly.
We'll call it more broadly.
And I will say, in public health, we use a wide variety of tools, many a bit lower tech than Tableau, on how we communicate data.
And that's fine. That's fair. I mean, it doesn't matter what you use.
Nope.
They all serve the same purpose, right?
They do.
And so, and I'm assuming when you have these conferences, like the Outlier conference, it doesn't matter what tool you're using.
Nope.
It's about how you tell that story.
True.
Even if it's in PowerPoint.
PowerPoint, yeah, I use PowerPoint. Right? I still use Excel.
It still has a place, yeah.
There are graphics that are in the big book of dashboards that we made in Canva, not Tableau.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting because I feel like these tool-specific communities are really powerful for building community and sharing technical tips. And what I've always loved about the Viz Society, since we spun out of the Tapestry Conference back in 2018 and were founded in 2019, is this idea of how do we bring together people from Tableau and Power BI and Click and the BI people, but also all of the data artists and the data journalists and other people who have similar goals around how do we communicate information and data in compelling, engaging ways. And doing that regardless of tool or industry, and creating space for those conversations. And that's what DVS does and Outlier is all about.
Well, that's what got me into Tableau. Tableau's the tool I use.
Yeah,
right? But
Tableau is great.
But the reason I got into it is because of that art component. I was working in data. I was a data analyst. But when I saw that art, I loved art growing up. And I'm like, oh, this is great. Now I can have both. I feel now that a lot of people who are very technical getting into Tableau sometimes don't place enough importance on the artistic side of things. And I think it's sometimes overlooked.
I think it depends situation, right? Okay. So like, who's your audience and what are you building? If I'm building a business dashboard, I think there are things from art and design I should be borrowing and understanding around the use of white space and how I can create visual groupings of charts and numbers and different components. And where do you bring in images or image-related content that is meaningful? But then I think there's also ways in which someone can take those same skills they use to build a great business dashboard and then think about the underlying marks and the underlying colors and the ways that they encode information in different ways, and then build out really artistic visualizations. And I always think that seeing people kind of stretch the bounds of how we think about data visualization as I think Frank Olavsky, Shirley Wu, and some others have talked about more recently, data experiences. And what does that look like even out off the screen is really powerful.
I call it functional art.
You're very Alberto Cairo. Doesn't he have a book called The Functional Art?
Oh, yeah.
He does.
Yeah. Because it's not about just making it look pretty for the sake of looking pretty. It has to have a purpose, right? Even like the colors you use. Don't use all the colors in the rainbow and on the dashboard. It's it takes away from the message, right? So there's I guess not a right or wrong way, but a better ways to tell the story based on how you design it and the art that you use.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. We even did that during Chart Chat this morning. Did you join us for Chart Chat?
I did not.
I know there were some good competing sessions this morning with Chart Chat. Ben Jones was talking about data literacy. It was great. And the Data Village is always there. at Chart Chat, we actually walked through like the exact same chart, but colored multiple different ways in my Chart Chat example. And kind of looked at the way that when you color everything, you functionally focus on nothing because you're not sure where to draw your eye versus where in a sea of lots of bars or lines, when you highlight one particular set of those bars or lines, you really focus attention on that one component. And which component you highlight, of course, depends on the question you're answering and who your audience is and what they need to know.
That's true. Also, which color you choose makes a difference too.
It does, yeah. Right. My reds and my oranges I was using wouldn't have worked so well if I was not talking about distrust in the media institution.
Yes. Sometimes you can, so here's the thing. If you're somebody who wants to convey a certain message, you could easily do that based on the colors and the way you design the visuals.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of sentiment to color and how we feel about colors, for sure.
Yeah. And that's where the art component comes in, right? And so if you're somebody who's like very technical and you're good with coding and whatnot, would you say that all technical people can learn art, or do you think it's easier for artistic people to learn the technical side when it comes to business intelligence?
Oh, goodness. That's an interesting question. I don't think there's a one-size-fits-all answer to that, right? Like we all have different ways in which we like to do work and things that we enjoy learning. And there are people I've collaborated with who definitely lean heavier on the technical side of things and are brilliant wizards with using different tools and code in multiple languages and can pick up those the same way some polyglots can pick up a fourth language. And that's great. But I also think that there are also so many technical resources now that someone artistic and inclined towards analysis and numbers can learn that side of things. And in a big way, it just depends on your personal interest and your passion and willing to practice. Because, I mean, you've done this work for a while. Like, it's doing the work and practicing the thing and deciding I'm going to build the artistic Neil Richards visualization in Tableau instead of building the Jeff Schaefer dashboard.
But it's also not stealing, but getting ideas from other people too. That's how you learn. Like you see how other people do it, you're like, oh, that's a great way to do it.
Absolutely.
You get those ideas. But there's also this other component, right? So there's this technical side, there's artistic side. And you're very good at communication.
Thank you.
But I feel like a lot of people overlook that as a skill set that they need to have when they're working in data visualization. What's your opinion on that? Do you think it's important?
Oh, absolutely.
Communication.
Well, I think and communication in a lot of levels, right? So how do I communicate with, take for example, if you're consulting, which is a lot of what I've done in my work life, and you're working with a team and you need to go ahead and build them something to communicate information to. Well, I have to talk with them and listen to them and ask good open-ended questions to understand.
You don't just put a dashboard.
No, you just like throw it up there.
You don't just throw it in and you say, here's a story. Right?
It's like, okay, so let's talk about and let's build a rapport and understand what your needs are. And how do I translate those into kind of data speak and into a set of requirements? And how do I continue to communicate with you that I am in a kind and thoughtful way helping to co-design the dashboard with you. You say, I want paired column charts everywhere. I don't like paired column charts very much. I want paired column charts everywhere. And I say, okay, like tell me more about why you love a paired column chart. Maybe it's because it's what you've always seen. Well, what do you like about it? What other charts could we use that maybe better help you answer that analysis question? And so each conversation with your client or your stakeholder is that opportunity to go ahead and build towards a better product. And then when you launch a dashboard, like if you build it, they will come is not a mantra for dashboard developers, right? Yeah. What are the communications you're putting out there to teams? What's the change management work you're doing to make sure that people understand how to use your tool and kind of shift and change behaviors on how they access data? So for me, like the communication and the change management and those often, I think, poorly named soft skills are really what kind of pull the whole package together and make data meaningful.
What do you mean by poorly named soft skills?
I hate the term soft skills.
Why?
Soft skills, soft? It like has this association of
that it's not important.
It's not that. It's like it has created this dichotomy of the hard technical skills and then the soft skills that I have to say.
It makes it sound like it's easy.
It's a very gendered way of talking about skill sets. And to say it's the soft skills to me is not my favorite way of framing it. Foundational skills, core skills, communication skills. Be more specific.
Communication skills.
Be more specific about the soft skills you want.
Yeah. And why is it called hard skills?
I don't know. Hard. I don't think they're always harder to learn, but
But are they really?
I prefer calling them technical skills.
Yeah, so technical
chops.
skills and communication skills.
But there's more than communication, right? There's more than just communication. There's all the other components that go into like project management and all of the change management and things that go beyond communication that I think we oftentimes don't think as much about, but should.
Yeah, no, those are fair points. And I think, so I teach students analytics in Tableau. And when they're starting off and learning a tool, the focus oftentimes, at least in the entry-level beginner, is very technical.
Sure.
Like, how do you do this? How do you do that? But then to get to that next level, like, it's not that in itself will not get you the job.
Or onto the Iron Viz stage.
Or on the Iron Viz stage, yes. Iron Viz stage is a whole nother level. I mean, if you're
truly
like, I mean, let's talk about the Iron Viz because you were a judge, one of the 3 judges at the Iron Viz.
I was.
I sat through this Iron Viz. I've been through to 7 conferences. Okay. I would say that this Iron Viz competition was probably the hardest one for me to decide the winner.
Yeah, I agree. It was very difficult.
It was very close. I did not.
3 exceptional Vizes that each did different things so incredibly well, and each of them great storytellers on stage, right? I mean, the whole package.
So, how much of that storytelling? So tell me about like your criteria when you're trying to decide the winner. Like,
sure.
What do you look for?
So the criteria that are set forth actually in the competition, so the contestants know it too, mirror some of the criteria from the feeder competition that gets people onto that stage. And so we look at analysis, design, and storytelling. So those 3 components all focus on the dashboards that they build, or really kind of the workbooks, the data experiences they build. Like, how do you call the path of a bird a dashboard? I don't know. The data experiences they created. And so we look at analysis. So this is things like kind of how well did they represent the data? What kind of data story did they find in it? What analysis are they presenting? Is there a clear question that you're answering? Then design, so all the design components, like when you're adding in images, are those images adding value or are they gratuitous? Are the chart types you're picking appropriate for the data? Like all those design pieces. And then the storytelling piece of how does the whole sequence kind of come together? And we saw different ways of doing that navigation this year in terms of dynamic zone visibility, the dashboard tabs, and the story. But like, how do those pieces come together? And then some additional points at the end for the actual delivery on stage in front of, I think, 7,000 people this year.
It's not easy to do that.
7,000 people to go ahead and make your case and walk through and tell your story. And each of the contestants did a fantastic job across all of those different domains.
I agree. I had actually all 3 of them on my podcast together.
Amazing.
And so that was their first interaction.
Oh my gosh, they're so fun.
It was a great part.
I had it was such a joy getting to spend time with them this week. Like, I cannot overstate.
So you spent time with them after or before?
We had to spend some time together before. I mean, we got to figure out where everyone's walking on stage and everything, like all the blocking and stuff. It takes a little bit of that work to make sure all the plan is in place and everyone knows where to be when.
Yeah. No, that's great. And so this is your first time being a judge? You can only be a judge. I
don't actually know what the rules are. Mark Bradbourne's back for, I think, his 3rd year judging.
That's right, yeah.
And he's been a Sue Vizer before on stage. And shout out to the Sue Vizers. They were also...
Oh, yeah, they were great.
I was like, I just want, like, the hype team of the Sue Vizers. Like, everywhere I go, they were just right there, up there behind them, cheering them on.
Tell people who don't know what a Sue Vizer is.
Sue Vizers, this is Iron Viz, they're chef jackets. Sue Vizers are the people who stand next to and are supporting our Iron Viz contestants throughout their live build on stage. So they're there to kind of, they've seen the plan in advance with their team member, and they're going ahead and they're saying, hey, remember this, don't forget this. And they're also going ahead and being that hype person who's behind them, just like cheering them on, keeping the energy high.
And then you're asking questions to them
Andy and Archana were.
Yeah. Oh, yes. And so the contestants are busy. They have 20 minutes focusing on.
I don't think that Bo or any of the rest of them are very interested in having an interview during their live visit.
Yes.
So the Sue Vizers are also, they're taking questions when something weird happens. Like we had the pie chart explosion that happened this year. They're like all the pie charts appeared. And when a question goes about like, what is that and why pie, that usually goes to the Sue Vizer.
They have to know what the right answer. It's not an easy thing to do. So I mean, we're talking about like dashboards and like best practices and how to build dashboards that are effective.
Sure.
Right. And so, you being a judge, you've seen dashboards, and we talked, there's different levels. Talk about like Iron Viz level, and then you have beginner level, and there's people in between. How can you, like, if you're somebody who's building dashboards, how do you know? How are there things that you look for that indicate whether you're good at dashboard design or not?
Oh, whether you're good at, I mean, it's always just a learning journey, right? You can always keep getting better. You always keep getting better. You know, so I think of like the Iron Viz dashboards are really data stories, right? They're designed more for storytelling than exploration. And we often see this kind of exploratory data versus explaining data. But each of those have kind of a clear story that you walk through, like Catherine's animation on her gauge chart that goes ahead and like animates the kind of cockpit over time, and then goes ahead and shows you the trends. And it's a little bit more story driven because one of the 3 scoring criteria is around storytelling, right? Yes. Versus when I think about a really business oriented, or in my case, a public health dashboard that's meant to let people do a lot of filtering and choose your own adventuring into the data can look different. Analysis. But I think that there's so many overlapping things that we think about, right? In terms of doing great dashboard design. We think about having kind of simple, clean design that has purpose to each component that we see. We think about having a clear organization of the charts. I always think about the kind of general practice of my most important pieces up here in the upper left corner where I'm starting out, and then moving down in that Z or F pattern. You think about those Gestalt principles around grouping things. Yeah. So if I want you to read a chart and read a number at the same time, let's put some white space or some a little bit of shading around it. And going ahead and making sure that each chart actually serves its purpose in answering a certain analysis question, that we're not, I mean, as much as we saw pie charts in Iron Viz this year, maybe not throwing a gratuitous like 10 dozen pie charts onto your business dashboard, but going ahead and thinking about like what analysis purposes each of these charts serving, and how do they work together to help someone answer a question. Yeah, those are all things to look out for. And you asked me actually a better question. How do I know I'm a good dashboard developer? And my short answer is, do the people who you want to have use your dashboard use it and find value in it? And I don't care how cluttery it is. If it's adding value for your stakeholders, you are a good dashboard developer. You don't know how common of a problem this is in business. You have 100 dashboards out there, and like just like 10 of them are being used. Oh, I do. I've seen the Tableau survey reports from some places I've worked. And so, like, why does that happen? Well, I mean, that's why we wrote Dashboards That Deliver, was because we wanted to help answer that question, I think. I think there's a couple pieces, and it happens at different parts of that dashboard development and maintenance funnel. One is, are you building a dashboard that actually has a purpose, or just something someone thought they might want, maybe as a one-off, but then not really use? Second, do you have users who are interested and engaged and actively giving you feedback on your dashboard so that you can help it be a living thing that improves over time? Third, does the dashboard actually answer the questions those users need to answer? And I think that by taking more time up front to do more of that early stage discovery, and to taking the time to go back to our users, whether it's monthly or quarterly, just check in and gather feedback from them and see what we might improve. Sometimes you'll get a list of requests and you cannot do them all, right? But we can prioritize with our users what are the ones that will have the biggest impact on you finding this dashboard to be more useful. I think it's people have trouble saying no, and it's okay to say no. It is hard to say no. It's hard to say no. Well, especially to your boss. If your boss is telling you to do it, it's really hard to say no. It is. But here's the thing: if somebody's asking me for something and I don't agree with them, does it mean that I have to do it? Well, it depends on who's asking. Well, if it's just a business user, then they're like, "Oh, I have this Excel spreadsheet." Put on Tableau because it takes me like 5 hours. I want to automate it. I think that's where the question about prioritization comes in, right? Yeah. So what are you saying no to in order to say yes to that request? And how do you make sure you're prioritizing the things that add the most value in whatever role you're in? Okay, so let's role play this, okay? Okay. Do I get to say no? Do I get to tell you no? Is that part of the role play? I'm the business user. So you're the business user. All right, let's leave it. So, Amanda, I have an Excel spreadsheet. It takes me like 5 hours to create. Can you make it in Tableau and like automate it so that it automatically be refreshed for me every week, so I don't have to spend the time creating Oh, an interesting question. Can you tell me more about where the data in that Excel spreadsheet comes from and how often do you have to refresh it?
It's customer data. It's in our CRM table.
Okay, so it's somewhere that already exists that we might be able to skip Excel. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So I think that what we should do is make sure that you're getting something that's still useful for you. So I'd like to take a little bit of time to take a look at that Excel spreadsheet and to go ahead and talk through kind of what those different needs you have are, and to go ahead and talk with my team about who has bandwidth to take on this request.
Yeah, but I have, this report is being delivered to certain stakeholders who want it in a certain style, and I just need it in these rows and columns, and that's kind of how I need to pull the data. I don't need any visualization necessarily or make it creative.
Oh, well, you just need a table of data. Then I wonder if there's a way that you might be able to generate that table from your CRM. But it's hard to know without actually going ahead and looking at what you have right now and figuring out and estimating the time it might take to even help you with some of that automation and figure out how that fits in our backlog.
Okay, I mean, if you can point me to the right direction, maybe I can do that, and then maybe you can give me some ideas on maybe how I can visualize this. Maybe there's a better story I can tell.
Yeah, well, I would love to go ahead and figure out kind of where that fits in with our team's capacity right now. Got a couple other really big priority projects, but I'd love to go ahead and bring that to my team meeting next week.
Perfect. Let me know whatever you need. That was perfect. Like that is how, like, so that's you didn't. Say
That's
no.
hard. That's hard to do when
That's
you're young. It's
it
hard to
is,
do when
it
you're
is,
young.
it is.
Hard to do when you're young.
But you know why? Because they feel like they want to prove themselves and they don't want to say no because maybe they don't have the experience to say it. You didn't say no.
I never did.
You never said the word no.
Nope.
You just gave alternatives or better options.
Well, I always try to go back and like it's such a fool's errand, right? If someone says, "Hey, can you automate this thing for me?" If I never say yes to something like that without understanding the scope or scale of the request, right?
Yeah.
How much time will it take? What are we saying no to? All those different things. And I think one of the jobs of any of us who are managing teams is to help work with our team members to make sure that we have structures around how we plan our work and plan our time, that they both feel empowered to do the kind of work they love and to serve their clients, whether those are internal stakeholders or elsewise, but also that we are the fallback, that if someone needs to have that hard conversation, we can have it together, and that our team has structures that we support each other and we make sure that no one's working 80-hour work weeks. That's not sustainable.
So, yeah, it's true. But so let me go back to your point about if somebody's new, they have experience, they won't be able to answer it that way. What do they do then?
I don't think won't is necessarily the piece of it, but I do think that it's harder when you feel like you're more junior and you're trying to prove yourself. And maybe I'm projecting, that's how I felt when I was younger.
Yeah.
I think that there are times when it's totally fair to lean back on either a process or structure for our team has a process for prioritizing these kind of requests. Here's where to submit that request. Here's who you can email that request to. Here's who you can talk to about it. Because people want to feel heard and like they're being considered, right?
Yeah.
And you can't just brush them off. You can't just say no, but you can go ahead and bring it into the planning process that lets us figure out those pieces. I mean, I learned a lot about that when I was working with Agile team members and with Agile teams and Agile coaches who do a lot of focus on prioritization and estimation.
Yeah. But you're saying that as somebody who's experienced this, I haven't experienced that yet. I may not know.
Yeah.
That's where I guess that's how you learn, right?
Yeah.
And I think that brings that's why I think it's important to have like mentors or people that can help you along the way.
Absolutely.
Right. Especially when you're early on.
Totally. I mean, I look back on the many ways in which people who I worked with, not just in the data viz space, but in public health and in monitoring, evaluation, research, all those areas, in human-centered design and agile, that I learned from, that have all informed the ways in which I approach my work today. And I have always tried to be good about going back and saying thank you. But if there's someone who's inspired you, don't wait to go ahead and reach out and say thank you for their time.
Are you a data nerd?
Absolutely.
When did you realize?
Oh, let's ignore the semantics of data nerd, because I'm not sure if I called myself a data nerd back then, but apparently when I was around 5 years old, I proclaimed to my parents that I wanted to be an epidemiologist.
Okay.
Long conversations that happened before that, and understanding, kind of look at and use numbers to figure out where diseases were happening. And so I don't know how a 5-year-old comes to that conclusion for a career path without being a data nerd at the age of 5.
5 years old, a very early age. You're barely starting school at that age.
We like numbers at my house. My dad was an engineer.
My dad was a computer science teacher. right?
Yeah.
I can't me to say that did not have an impact on where I am now. It's not true. It
Oh
does.
yeah. Oh, I always laugh still because my take your kid to work day, my mom's was really fun. She's a physical therapist, works with kids. You get to go in the pool. Seemed awesome. My dad, as an engineer, you go to work, and I oftentimes was drawing things on graph paper. And so it was a very funny joke now as my life has come full circle, and I spend lots of time drawing things on graph paper. He also required, basically, of all of his children that in our early days of elementary school, as computers at the home were very new, we all learned Excel. So, it starts young.
Starts young.
It does.
Never too young to start getting into data.
Never. The number blocks are great. If anyone has kids, the number blocks from BBC, so much fun. Like my kids love the number blocks, and it's a great way of teaching math to kids and getting them excited about math and science.
That's awesome. Great story.
Yeah.